From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, September the 19th, 2024. The IDF said 2 Israeli soldiers were killed today during attacks by terror group Hezbollah from Lebanon on northern Israel. They are 20-year-old Sergeant Tomer Keren and 43-year-old Major in Reserve Nael Fawarsi. Keren was killed and 8 other IDF soldiers wounded by 2 anti-tank missiles launched by Hezbollah that hit near the Lebanese border. And Fawarsi was killed and another soldier wounded after an explosive-laden drone launched by Hezbollah struck an area in the western Galilee. The attacks were among several by Hezbollah launched at northern Israel today, which also included rockets. The IDF also shared today that it thwarted an attempted bomb attack on the Lebanese border earlier this week. The IDF today said it continues to hit Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, saying for decades Hezbollah has weaponized civilian homes, dug tunnels beneath them, and used civilians as human shields, having turned southern Lebanon into a war zone. The IDF said it is operating to bring security to northern Israel in order to enable the return of residents to their homes and achieve war goals. And in Israel's ongoing battle against terror group Hamas in Gaza, the IDF gave an update from the Tel Sultan neighborhood, where it said over the last month, over 300 terrorists were eliminated there, and that a long-range rocket storage depot and ammunition depots were located and destroyed. The United Nations General Assembly adopted a Palestinian resolution yesterday calling for sanctions and an arms embargo against Israel and demanding that Israel entirely leave what it called, quote-unquote, occupied Palestinian territory within a year. The resolution, by the way, makes no mention of the October 7th Hamas massacre on Israel or of the hostages that remain captive in Gaza. 124 countries voted in favor of the resolution, 14 against, including the United States, and 43 countries abstained. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, called the passage of the resolution shameful. Israel's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Oren Marmerstein said the decision of the General Assembly tells a one-sided fictional story in which countless murderous terrorist attacks on the citizens of the State of Israel do not take place, in which Israeli children, women, and men were not victims of the horrific atrocities committed by the Hamas terrorist organization during the October 7th massacre, in which Israel is not being attacked on a daily basis from 7 different fronts by terrorist organizations led by Iran, and where the State of Israel and the Jewish people have no historical rights in the land of Israel. The General Assembly's decision ignores reality, Israel's security needs, and terrorism against its citizens. Jewish organizations here in the U.S. also condemned the passage of the resolution. The American Jewish Committee saying the UN General Assembly, which can't bring itself to condemn Hamas, passed an anti-Israel non-binding resolution demanding that Israel withdraw unconditionally within 12 months from the areas it captured in 1967 in a war of self-defense, saying true peace can only come through direct negotiations, not through one-sided UN resolutions. B'nai B'rith International said, coming from an assembly in which Arab and other pro-Palestinian governments wield an automatic majority to annually condemn Israel more than all other countries combined, the motion is unprecedented in its shamelessly one-sided endorsement of Palestinian claims and political demands. Also noting yet again, nearly a year after the grievous October 7th terrorist atrocities in Israel, and as over 100 Israeli and international hostages remain in unspeakable captivity in Gaza, the UNGA resolution failed to recognize and denounce violence against Israeli civilians of all backgrounds by Hamas, Lebanese Hezbollah, Yemen's Houthis, and their common patron, Iran. The families of the American hostages being held by Hamas met yesterday with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan to discuss the latest efforts to try and secure the release of the hostages and shared their frustration with the lack of tangible progress, according to a press release, which said Mr. Sullivan stressed the administration's unwavering commitment to bringing the Americans home and reiterated that resolving this crisis is a top priority for President Biden. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office released a statement yesterday responding to some criticism on the efforts to reach a hostage deal, saying in part, the fact that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has acceded to every American proposal for releasing the hostages, despite the ultimatum from elements in the coalition, completely refutes the claim that he has torpedoed any deal whatsoever due to political considerations, noting he has already brought about the release of 154 hostages, 117 of whom are alive, and will continue to utilize all means to release the hostages. Whoever wants to assist in the effort to release our hostages, Netanyahu's office wrote, needs to pressure the murderer Sinwar and not the Prime Minister of Israel. The hostages who remain held captive by Hamas in Gaza have now been held for 349 days. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Thursday, September the 19th at 7 o'clock. FIDF Steve Weil speaks with IDF Master Sergeant Aaron Bours about his experience as a lone soldier, including on October the 7th. At 7:30, Weil is joined by Brigadier General in Reserve Nitzan Nuriel to discuss the current challenges facing the IDF. At 8, Robert Siegel is joined by former Lebanese journalist Hanin Gadar and Middle East analyst Aaron David Miller to discuss Israel's northern border and the continued threat from Hezbollah and Iran. At 9, it's part 2 of the late Richard Stone on L'chaim. At 10, Lebanese-American Walid Moanes joins Eric Goldman to talk about his award-winning film 1982. At 10:30, it's an encore of the news. And coming up next, I speak with CEO of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, to discuss his recent visit to Israel, where he mourned with the families of the hostages who were slain by Hamas last month. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, September the 19th, 2024. I'm Teisha Bader. Am Yisrael Chai.